Thank you. I had, well, when you get to be my age, you've known everybody. But I had the privilege of knowing and actually befriending Rosa Parks. And yeah, I met Miss Parks, actually, it's a day like today. It's, really shitty weather. Oh. And we were in Philadelphia, and both trying to fly out. She was flying one place, and I was flying another. I have certain skills, if you don't mind me sharing it. And one of my skills is that I can sleep anywhere. And I slept actually from New York to Accra, Ghana. I'm incredibly good at that. And it was raining like this, and so I was going to the airport because you never know when the planes were going to leave, the old Philadelphia airport, for those of you who know Philly Airport. And I kind of walked in looking for, I'm a 60s person, so I'm also nervous. So I was looking for some place that I could put my bag. It was just one of those places, you walk in, and where can you put your bag? I saw where I was going to go, and I started that way, and you know how you look. And I looked over, and I said, damn, that woman looks like Rosa Parks. It's one of those things. And I put my glasses on because, like a lot, I can't see without them. And it was Mrs. Parks. And there was someone sitting next to her. And in all fairness, and I mean no disrespect to those of us who are not black, but there was a white man sitting next to, on the other side. And I thought, somebody has to move. And I, of course, had enough sense to know I was never going to move that black woman. So the white guy had to move. And so the question was, how do I get him to move? And for those of you who are young, a lot of options. I could have gone over and said, excuse me, sir, you're sitting next to a cultural icon, and I would like to have your seat, please. And somehow or another, you just thought, he wouldn't do what you want done. Or you could do that thing that we in the black community call bogarting, which is what I did. I just went over. Well, I just wanted him to move, and he's looking up at me. I said, are you going to move or what? And I'm sorry. And I sat down, and it was Mrs. Parks. And, of course, I was talking, and we became friends. But I started this because of my sorors here. And as I got to know her, Miss Parks, was a tea drinker. I'm a coffee drinker. And we were drinking coffee. We were having, just coffee and tea one day. And I said, Miss Parks, when I think about your life, I am amazed that you only made one mistake. And she was very calm. She was an incredibly calm woman. And so it was like, and what was that, baby? And I said, you went AKA. So we can't all go Delta. But it was just one of the mistakes she made. But hey, all things being equal, I'm delighted. I'm delighted to be in Indianapolis, and I want to say hello to the overflow, and I want to thank you all for coming out on a day like today. But one of the things that, well, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. Number one, I'm a Fisk University graduate, and thank you. And there are a lot of Fisk University graduates in Indianapolis. I know I've met quite a few of you. But one of the things that I keep thinking is that we have to think about where Fisk's future is going. And I thought every time I've had an opportunity to speak to a group of people, I wanted to share this. I would love to see us become the Fisk School of Vanderbilt University, because if you've been to Nashville recently, you see Vandy has taken over anyway. When I was growing up in segregation at Fisk University, Vanderbilt was on the other side of West End. And you see that Vandy has come over, haven't it? And Vandy continues to encroach upon us. And we're going to look around and we're going to be like Knoxville College or any number of other small liberal arts schools that have gotten absorbed. And what we do best, as we all know, what Fisk did for America, for the world, was that we brought the black American spiritual to the world. And we have our main building there is Jubilee Hall. And people who don't know our history say, oh, Queen Victoria gave us 50,000 pounds. They say dollars and they mean pounds. But she didn't give diddly. No, they earned that. And it was a wonderful thing, but they earned that. They did. And in doing what they did, we know that the American Missionary Society, which I have no quarrel with the American Missionary Society at all, but we know that a lot of the money that the Jubilee singers, that they were the Fisk singers at that point, that they sent back, we know that the AMA took it and used it for other purposes. So Fisk did not get all that we should have and could have gotten at that particular point. But I always think about it because, one, I look at Anderson Cooper every now and then. Of course, Anderson Cooper is a Vanderbilt. And you just think, we have to find a way, because if we were the Fisk School of Vanderbilt University, one, we would do music, because we do that incredibly well, and nobody does it better, even in Nashville. The other thing that we would, not the other, but one of the other things, of course, we are the school of W.E.B. Du Bois. And so we do sociology. It's true. We do sociology better than anybody. So these are two of the schools we could take from Vanderbilt that would help continue to build us up. And I think that sometimes, you know, we're in a different world. We're in a different time. I was thinking about Diane Nash, and I won't do this with so much, I just wanted to share. But I was thinking about Diane Nash because I remember I was at Fisk when Nash was at Fisk. She was a little bit ahead. And, of course, you remember what happened in Selma. And it was Diane who, for those of you who were there when we were there, it was Diane that rallied the university, that rallied Fisk, and we went downtown. It was the most frightening thing that ever happened to us. But we went down against segregation. Of course, we were arrested, and, you know, some ugly other things happened. But it was Fisk, and we forget, or we are not given credit. I don't know. The language is going to be bad on this. But it was Diane Nash, and Bevel joined Nash. Nash did not join Bevel. In all fairness, I'm not against Jim Bevel, but that's the root. And it was Diane that put that together to say we have to do something about it. And Fisk went down to do something about it. My generation was the generation of segregation. Nobody is going to say that segregation was a good idea. But segregation, in many respects, was a clear idea because segregation was an idea of the law. Post-segregation is an idea of the heart. And one of the things that the kids are now having to deal with is how is it that white people can continue to treat black people the way that they do? It's true. We could fight about it because we could say, clearly this is separate but not equal. Whether it was Brown versus Topeka, whether it was Loving versus Virginia. And of all of the fools on earth, aside from Donald Trump, but you know that's true. The other real fool, of course, is Clarence Thomas. It was incredible to me when we finally come up to having the gay marriage that Clarence Thomas, of all the people on earth, voted against it. When I remember, because I'm 72, but I remember there was a time that Clarence would have married Virginia, and we would have lynched him. That's what would have happened. We would have lynched him. So by what right does he decide that he doesn't like something? You know, you wonder. So I'm saying this to the kids in the audience. Please go to law school and read the Constitution. That's the truth. And I want to remind us, too, that if you become president of the United States, please get that balanced out. I've been very disappointed in Barack because we should have a black man on the Supreme Court to balance out that fool. Just so. You know it's true. You know it's true. I was disappointed in Barack because Barack keeps saying, now he's getting a little better, I guess, but he was like, well, I don't want people to think that, you know, I'm being partial to black people. Of course you are, Barack. We vote on Tuesday, right? Nobody woke up Wednesday morning and said, damn, he's colored. We knew that. We who are black and we who are white, we knew that when we voted for him. We expected leadership in how we go forward. And right now, we haven't done anything that one of the Bushes couldn't have done. And that's sad. And what happened in Paris is sad. And what happened in Mali is sad. And our disagreement with our Muslim brothers and sisters is sad. But our disagreement with our Christian brothers and sisters, our Christian brothers and sisters lynched us. And our Christian brothers and sisters dropped bombs on other people. And it seems that at some point we need to figure out how do we talk to each other. And I want to say one other thing, and then I'll read some poetry, do something so y'all won't get mad at me. But no, I'm a space freak. And I know that there are a number of youngsters in the room. I'm a space freak, and I think it's important. I know it's important. I know it's important as we consider the universe. Mars is the fourth planet from yellow sun, right? We're third planet. And I know, well, as you know, Mars is right as I stand here, it's a 500-day trip to Mars. By the time we actually get to go, it's going to be about a 400-day trip. We cannot do Mars unless we understand how to be quiet and alone. That's reality. So the only other thing, and I happen to be partial to, if I can say that, I'm very partial to Appalachian whites. And I'm partial to Appalachian whites because I know my history. I know that if you were in Alabama and you were trying to run away from slavery, and once you got on the Appalachian Trail, the closer you got up to the mountains, the safer you were, because they did not send black people back. And as you know, when we got to what is now called West Virginia, they seceded from Virginia because they said, we will not send our sons to die so that the Shenandoah can have slaves. So these are good people. But when you look at the space program, all you're looking at is Appalachian whites right now, because we haven't sent that many blacks up there. Mae Jemison, thank God. But all you're looking at is them. And they are quiet. And when we look at what does Earth need to know in order to go into space? And this is what I wanted to propose to us this evening, or I've been talking about it a lot. We have to understand a little bit more about Middle Passage. Because we look at Middle Passage and we say, oh, they captured the Africans and they put them down, which is all very true, and it was a horrible thing. We could go through that whole, they put them down in the ship, they brought them back up. These people had to make adjustments all the way. We know that they brought them up second and third day, and we know that they poured water on them because they laid them stripped head to toe. So we know that whatever came out of the person above came to the person below. Nobody would be alive unless we could get that off of them. So we brought them up and we threw water on them. And of course we wanted them to move so that their muscles could. And so we took a whip and we whipped at them and they moved. And we know on the second day they got there and they looked out and they could see where Africa was. They could see where they had been taken from. We got to the third and fourth day and we bring them up and we throw water on them and we want them to do what is called dance, which is a joke, and they can still look out. And though they cannot see the land, they can see the clouds. And we all know, we even here in Indiana, and you're in the middle of America, we all know that clouds over land are different from clouds over water, so that they could understand where they are. Some jumped in the water and tried to swim home, and they were killed. Some died and were thrown overboard. We know when we get to that fifth or sixth day, they're beginning to have no concept of where they are. They know that they're gone a long time, and they know that these people are not being very kind, but they know, okay, where are we? But we do know from the diaries of the ship's captains and the people on the ship who could write, we do know that on the 10th day, every white person, and we always say men, but we forget, and that's another part of history, we forget that there were women on those ships. And every white person on that ship, on that 10th day, had a weapon, because once these people came up and looked, they had no idea where they were. And this is going to be the point of rebellion. So those who did not get killed or those who did not jump over, right, are now going to have to go forward. And this is what I am concerned about. This is what interests me. The people who had to go forward or who went forward had to make a decision. How do I continue this journey? I'm partial to black women because I grew up with black women, because there's just nothing that is as comforting as an old black woman. So that's true. So I know when they went back down, it was going to be a black woman who's going to take on the responsibility to make sure her people can make it through. And she's going to start. She's going to come with a hum. She's going to create a song, because she doesn't speak their language. She doesn't speak their language. She has people that she doesn't understand, but we all understand this song. And this is the song that she's going to carry as we come over to America. And this is a song that when they put us on a block, and people talk about black people, why do you all always want to be an entertainer? Hell, we've been on a block all of our lives. That's the truth. And we made a decision when we came to this country to be a part of it. We did not have to. We could have gone crazy. We could have simply stopped. But we made a decision to be a part of what ultimately is going to become America. And this is going to be an important part of what is ultimately going to be the world. And we cannot continue to let people who dislike us and who do not want to be a part of us and who do not understand, we cannot continue to let these people determine what we did in that middle passage. Because that middle passage is what is going to take us into Mars. It's what's going to take us to Pluto. It's what's going to allow us, when something that is living on some other planet. I always say that if you are living on Mars, whatever you do when you come to planet Earth, come to the black community. That's true. We're the nicest people. You come into the ghetto and, somebody, where are you from, brother? Say, I'm from Mars. Hey, the brother from Mars, give him a drink. You know that. Any place else that he goes, they're going to shoot him. They're going to lynch him. They're going to burn him up. We have a great history, and that history has to be studied. Now, I happen to be an education freak. I started talking about Fisk, and Fisk taught me some things, but a lot of things I also had to teach myself, as do you. You are in a post-segregation period, and a part of what you do, you have to go forward. You have to try to figure out, and how did we get here? Because it's a wonderful thing, really, to be a black American. And what we have brought to the world is a precious and important part of what the world is. If the world listened to us, we'd all be better off. And that's the truth. You know that. That would be more middle class. There would be a middle class, not more, because there's no middle class. There would be people who would learn to understand each other, who would get along with each other. There would be people who were not always judging something. The black community is incredibly, incredibly important. And I just wanted to say, because we had kids here on stage doing poetry, some of them were angry. They have a right to be. We were angry. Who doesn't have a right to be? You look at your life and you just wonder what the hell is wrong with these people. But we also know we cannot let those people who do not love us determine who we are. It's true. It's true. It's true. So I'm proud to be, as I was, in 1980, the first speaker for the Fall Festival. I am. I am. And, of course, Maya, but Maya was a second. Maya was here in 81. And, of course, we here in Indianapolis are so blessed to have Mary Evans as our... Yeah. And I just think it's wonderful. It's a good idea to be alive, and I want to encourage. I do. I keep saying, of all of the dumb things that I see on television, lately there's been this ad. You've probably seen these ads, and the ads are for hospice. And they're like, you should talk this over. Well, if there's one thing that everybody in this room knows, that knows anything, if it's one thing, if you were born, you're going to die. It goes with the territory. And of course what you want to do is you want to be graceful. You want to, handle it, you want to, work it out. But that's what's going to happen. You don't have to advertise that to me because I'm going to die whether I buy it or not. It doesn't matter. And it just kind of bothers me that they're doing things like that. And of course, Cialis, I don't understand. I've got a student in marketing. I teach a student in marketing. And I was saying to her, explain to me, because she's smart, explain to me why you advertise Cialis. And she said, well, people need it. And you don't need Cialis. You either need to fall in love or admit that you're not. No, things like that bother me. Anybody can screw. People need to. Well, I come in. Well, it's true. No, I come from a generation that believed in sex. We were against segregation, but we were for sex. And we did. Everybody talked about it. I mean, you can read it. Everybody talked about it. We were, I don't know, lewd or whatever they wanted to call us. But sex is a good idea. And I just thought I'd mention that. I think you ought to have a driver's license. You see what I'm saying? And I don't think people should force them. I mean, I'm not trying to do, but I think that you ought to be able to enjoy your life. And a part of enjoying your life, you get to be my age, it doesn't matter. I'm 72. So what I have now are memories. But it's important to make some memories. And it is. And you just get tired of people. I don't understand. They want women to be virgin, but they want men to be cockhounds. There's something not working on that. I think maybe if we flipped it, let the men be virgins. And let the women run around, like, might be different. But I'm not supposed to do that. But I just thought I would mention that. Life is interesting. And I certainly want to support the idea of life. We all will one day lose it. The term that I use a lot is transition. And the book, which you all didn't ask me about, but the book that I'm working on right now, because I had some health problems like last year, so I haven't been traveling very much. This is like the second time I've traveled. And it's because it was emotional. I think it was emotional. My doctor, I had a seizure. My doctor says, not a stroke, but a seizure. And my doctor said that it turns out it was like a thyroid. I'm doing this, but I don't even know where my thyroid is. And he was saying, you need to get your thyroid done. And I said to him, and Gregory is smart. He's a smart man. But I said to him, I don't think it's a thyroid problem. I think it's an emotional problem. And I think that I'm a black woman. I think I have held a lot in. And in holding it in and holding it in. My mother died 10 years ago now. My mother died on June 24th. But my sister died on August 10th. And my aunt died on the 29th of October. And so all I was doing was what had to be done. People had to be buried, houses had, the things that have to be, and you don't have time to cry. And I said to Gregory, I think that my problem was I need a good cry. And I finally come to the point that I no longer can hold it in, and so I think I need to let it out. And I haven't figured out how to do that, but I called Toni Martian, she's a good friend, and I said, Toni, I'm being, sad. And Toni said, write it out. And that was her, and she's right. So for anybody in the room who's sad, write it out. And that's true. Quite true. So I'm working on the new book is going to be a good cry, because I think that women, I don't know what men do. I see men play basketball, or they go out and play football, or I have a friend who bowls. So whenever anything goes with him, he goes and bowls. So I don't know how men handle emotion. I'm a woman, but I know that what we do is we keep it in, and we keep it in. And I think it's so important that we learn to let it out. But even our girlfriends will tell us, oh, don't cry, it'll be all right. But it won't be all right. Your mother won't come back, your sister won't come back, your dog won't come back. It won't be all right. And at some point, somebody needs to say, it's okay to let it out. I think it's so, I do. I think it's so important. But I am a poet, so I'm supposed to write these things out. And that's why I'm here today to read poetry. But it's been interesting. Well, I've been interested in how we go forward. Because you have to figure I'm 72. Maybe I'll live another 20 years, which would be, I'd be happy to do that. I would. But in those next 20 years, I need to come up with something different, which is why I am restudying. And I hope that others will join me. I am restudying slavery, because I know we have looked at it wrong. Something good. If I sat on this stage and we left it there, something would grow. Am I right? There's a movie, no, that's the truth. There's a movie called The Martian. And I don't know who they think they get ideas from, but I know that that's an idea that came from black people. It is. And so he's up on Mars, and what he does is that he takes the bowel movements, and he puts them together, and he grows potatoes. He finds a way, that's what's happening with that. He finds a way to live. And the movie that I dislike, not the most, but one of the movies I dislike, I don't see that many movies, but one that I dislike so much is, of course, Gone with the Wind. And you remember Gone with the Wind, we all saw that, and it was like, oh, poor Scarlett. But we remember, well, there's nothing wrong with that, but we remember at the end of part 1, because Scarlett is starving to death. You remember she's hungry, her people are hungry. And we know that she goes and she pulls up the carrots. And she says, I'll never be hungry again. And we know, you don't have to be smart to know that. We know that that's not possible. Whatever she pulls up, it could not have been carrots, because Sherman marched through Atlanta, through Georgia. And Sherman knew carrots. Everybody in his damn room knows a carrot. And so if he's burning things, he burned the carrots. So we know that what fed Scarlett and her people were the slaves that she mistreated. Because what they had that Sherman didn't know was the yams. Because they look like rocks. So we know when Sherman came through, that was not something he destroyed because he didn't know what it was. And we know that those people that she considered herself better than were the ones who came up and said, Miss Scarlett, this is a yam, and this is what you do with it. This will feed you. We are a great people. It's true, we saw the same thing happen in Charleston when that fool shot 9 people and the families forgave him. And they say, oh, why did you do that? We did that because we are a great people. And we have to start with that premise. We have to start with that premise. I am the mother of a son, so I'm going to read my only sort of sad poem, because I think every mother, Jesus, I can't have to, but I think every mother of any child is worried. I'm sure that anybody that has a child who's driving a car is worried, because the police are crazy. And I recently gave an interview, and they said, what do you think we should do? And I said, take the guns away from policemen. It's so basic. And they were like, well, how would they protect themselves? That's by being nice, same way we did. It's not there. But I used to tell Thomas, because it's, you worry, when you have a child, and many of us in the room are parents, when you have a child, the one thing that you don't want is your phone to ring in the middle of the night. You just absolutely don't want to do it. And I wrote a poem for D'Angelo, who was a friend who asked me about it, and it's called When My Phone Trembles, for D'Angelo. When my phone trembles after midnight, I never think of good news, someone's birthday, an overseas friend forgetting the time difference. I never smell apples baking or nutmeg dancing on sweet potatoes, yeast rolls rising, fish frying. I always look for a way to hold myself together. Being a 60s person, I know you have to be strong. When my phone trembles after midnight, I take a deep breath, reach for my glasses, think of my son, and pray. Yeah. See, I was laughing about not being able, but I'm learning to cry. And so anything that makes me just like, oh, damn. But you do. Can you imagine that somebody calls you and says, your 12-year-old who was in Kmart is dead because the cop said, oh, I thought he was going to hurt me? What kind of grown man are you that any child, I don't give a damn what the kid has? That doesn't make sense. But I remember, Milam and Bryant, which you probably remember. Milam and Bryant murdered Emmett Till, as you know. And there's a wonderful play out. It's called Darhy. And it's from the point of view of Mose. But they called, they were found not guilty, of course. And they called Bryant, I guess about now, I think they were all gone, about maybe 15 years ago or something like that. And they said to him, what are you thinking about what you did? And he said, that boy ruined my life. No, actually, you murdered him. Can you imagine? I mean, what the hell is wrong with people? Anyway, I'm a Tennessean by birth. I grew up in Cincinnati, and I've started a long time ago writing long poems. If I continue writing long poems, I'm going to end up with no poem at all. But I wanted to, some of you Indianans might write it. By the way, because I live in Blacksburg, and we don't have a, which I'm glad, we don't have a professional football team. And the Hokies are playing today. We were behind as I came in here, so I'm hoping we do better. But, you know, our closest professional football team is Washington, and they're called the Redskins. The American Indians have issues. I think the American Indians need to learn a little bit more about their black history, because I don't see why they live on reservations. I don't see why they have their own. I don't see a lot of that. But I know one thing: nobody wants to be a mascot. And the American Indians have said, we would rather not be a mascot. Can you please find another name? And people are saying, I don't see what's wrong with it. Well, hell, you don't have to. They do, and that's not, they don't want it to be called that. That's the truth. It just, that's the kind of thing that makes you angry. Plus, of course, monetarily speaking, the best thing that could happen to Washington would be if they changed their names. Because now it makes a souvenir out of what used to be, and everybody has to get new shirts. So it's going to be a lot of money that changes. That's true. So we know that the reason that they're called what they're called is not because of a business decision. It's called that to depress. We would not let them, to depress the Indians, we would not let them be called the niggers. We wouldn't. We absolutely would not. And we shouldn't. And we should be on the side of the American Indians. That's a stupid, so I don't cheer for them. And I don't go to their games. I'm a Hokie, and so I go to the, and I hope we beat North Carolina. But I wanted to, it's, well, we, thank you. We're going to be, wait, that's okay. We're going to make our bowl, and this is, well, Frank Beamer. When I first went to Virginia Tech, which, you know, y'all don't care about this at all. When I first went to Virginia Tech, Frank went to Virginia Tech 29 years ago. I went 28, so I was the year after. And I wanted to do something because I'm in a school that doesn't have a lot of black history, and so I think that not one of my jobs, because it's not a burden, because I really like black people. I like what we do, and I like bringing things in and letting people see it. And I was teaching Harlem Renaissance. That's not my phone, I hope. I was teaching Harlem Renaissance, and I thought, well, we'll have a fish fry. Because, again, oh God, I have to stop this. But there's a woman whom you probably don't know, and her name is Edna Lewis. And Miss Lewis is the free child, was the free child of slave parents. And the parents, when emancipation came, their former owner gave them 150 acres, and they went there and they called it Freetown. And Miss Lewis grew up in Freetown. And in Freetown, because we forget that, and I mean no disrespect if I see there are white women in the room, I mean no disrespect, but the white women didn't do their cooking. The black women did the cooking. And cooking was called domestic, which meant that you did not get any kind, you couldn't unionize, you couldn't get anything done with it. And it was Franklin Roosevelt, it was Francis Watkins, who changed cooking from domestic to professional, which was very important. But it's going to be Edna Lewis who, in making it, once it becomes professional, who is going to take that and make Southern cooking what it has become. And if you go to the post office and you see American chefs, the first chef here is going to be Edna Lewis, who, of course, fries incredible chicken. Actually, I fry pretty good chicken myself, and I do. Miss Lewis was a friend, but I'm a Tennessean by birth, and I wanted to. It was a long way to come back, but I wanted to. No, that's very important. What we call domestic, you know, because right now we still consider house cleaning. It's not professional. It's a domestic. And we need to find a way that minimum wage needs to come up. We need to, yeah. It's a lot more. We have a lot of things to think about. But I wrote a poem, Tennessean by Birth, because the Nation magazine was doing the 50 states. And they called me. I don't know why people call me, because I never do what they I never do what they like. I'm teaching a couple of our graduate students now, and they're sweet. They're PhD students, and they wanted to learn about the Black Arts Movement. Well, I'm probably the last person in the world to learn about the Black Arts Movement. I was a part of the Black Arts Movement. I'm not capable in another way of teaching it. And so I said to them, I wanted them to learn about it, but we started with Middle Passage because we had to start with where did the first song come from? And they are having a fit because it's like, Nikki, we're never going to get finished. And it's like, either learn something or don't. So we're working on that. Middle Passage is so important. But I responded to the Nation magazine, Tennessean by Birth. I'm a native Tennessean. I was born there during the age of segregation, when you couldn't go to the same amusement park or the same movie theater, when the white guys would cruise up and down the street and call out to you, when the black guys were afraid of being lynched. But we went to church each Sunday and we sang a precious song, and we found a way not to survive. Anything can survive, but to thrive and believe and hope. I'm a native Tennessean. I was born there. But I was only 2 months old when my mother and father moved my sister and me to Cincinnati during the age of segregation, when Dow drugstores wouldn't serve us, when neighborhoods were redlined. But at least Mommy could get a job teaching and Daddy could get a job behind the desk. And after all, if you are a college graduate, that's the least you can expect. Though the Pullman porters took us south each summer and watched over us with an unfailing faith and got us from there to here. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. I was born there, in the only state in rebellion that didn't have to undergo Reconstruction, in the volunteer state that sent as many from one side as another, in an area where, if I just have to have a car breakdown, I would prefer any holler to any city neighborhood. But there was no work and no way, and the chronic angers that flared would chase us to Ohio. We were not Liza crossing the river, just 4 people, 2 in love and 2 who were loved, who needed to put a rest to the rage. But the rage stayed, and someone had to go. I chose me, but I was born there, so the going was a coming. I'm a native Tennessean. I take no joy in Davy Crockett nor Jim Bowie. They were wrong to be at the Alamo. They were wrong to fight for the theft. I loved James Agee. I loved Thunder Road, though I, a native Tennessean, was not allowed to play a bit part when the crew came to town to film the movie. Ingrid Bergman and Anthony Quinn came to take a walk in the spring rain. And despite it all, I like Andrew Jackson. At least he knew the big guys were wrong. I'm a native Tennessean. I graduated Fisk University in Nashville. I know that the freedmen paid for that school. Nobody gave them anything. Pennies and nickels and prayers and determination. The freedmen paid for it, and many others. I know the American Missionary Society was wrong, took the money the Jubilee Singers made to save Fisk and used it for other purposes. I know the American Missionary Society was wrong. I was educated by the singers of those songs. I love those songs. How can I not love Nashville? How can I not love Dinah Shore, who invited the Jubilee Singers to sing at the Grand Ole Opry, then had to hear the rumors? She sang on, sang until she saw the USA in her Chevrolet. Mwah. I once saw her on a plane. I was going to the cabin. She was in first class. I said, hey. She smiled and said, hey, back. When I got Georgia on my mind, I rode the Chattanooga choo-choo to Lookout Mountain. I saw Memphis and was enchanted. From the mighty Mississippi gracefully turning all red to Bill Street beats at midnight, all those blues from so many bloods decided to turn my blues to Memphis gold. W.C. Handy, Bobby Blue Bland, B.B. King, the late, great Johnny Ace, stacks and stacks of music, American music. The Athens of the South held Tennessee music, but Memphis put the tears to the lonely and crossed over. Everybody wants to rock to my rhythm. I am Memphis. I heard the shots that took Martin. I know who killed the king. I'm a native Tennessean. I know what it is to be free. I am singing the country blues. I am whittling a wooden doll. I'm underground mining coal. I am running moonshine. I'm a white boy with a banjo, native to West Africa. I'm a black boy with a twang, native to the hills. I am smart. I am cool. I am unafraid. I am free. Yeah, I'm a native Tennessean.
At what age did you realize you wanted to be a poet?
I'm still realizing. I enjoy writing, and I think it's fun, and I say to my students, I enjoy teaching. And I'm always reminding my students that I think the main thing is to find your voice. And I think, again, education is important, but I don't want education to be like, oh my gosh, you need to go to high school. I think it is also important to talk to the old people. I grew up, my grandmother was Baptist, and my mother, when we moved to Cincinnati, I'm a native Tennessean, but when the family moved to Cincinnati, Mommy went to the AME church. So in one respect, I have the best of, I hate to say it like that, but both worlds, because the AME, of course, just really beautiful music. The Baptists are a little more structured, and well, they are. And I think that it's important to, I think that you can always tell. I was talking to a colleague recently, and these are longer answers, so you'll stop me. But I was talking to a colleague recently, and we were saying you can always tell the kids who have church and the kids who don't, because of the way that they respond to older people, the way that they comport themselves. And I think church, you get tired of the church people who are narrow-minded and foolish, but the church people who are Christian in their heart and who reach out, I think that these people help us to know that we have to go forward. I think it's important. I happen to be, of course, a member of Delta Sigma Theta, but there are other good, the AKAs, and there are other people of the Zetas, and I think it's so wonderful that all of us are providing scholarships to help youngsters to go forward, because we all have things that we need to give back, and I think things like that are incredibly wonderful.
How does it feel to have inspired so many people?
That's always so nice that people, put up with you. I just have a really different way of thinking about a lot of things, and I'm just lucky that people will listen. And there's a lot to be rethought, but I think if I couldn't do anything else for anybody else, the one thing I would definitely want to do for Black Americans is to simply remind us we can't keep talking to people who don't like us. And it's important to talk to people who do. And so even my generation, we're going to say white people, but that's not each and every. And so you have to remember this white person is a fool and this white person is a friend. And you have to make that distinguish and bring it in so that you're not always talking to the fools and ignoring your friends.
In 3 words, how would you describe your childhood?
How would I describe?
Your childhood.
Oh, I don't know.
Just 3?
I don't know.
I don't. Okay. What kind of music do you enjoy listening to?
Oh, I'm a jazz fan. I'm a jazz fan.
And who are some of your favorite artists?
Well, writing-wise, of course, Toni Morrison. I was so pleased that she won the Nobel. And I think the next Nobel, oh yeah, for sure. But I sincerely think the next Nobel, if not this one, then the one after that, it should be Edwidge Dadigan. Edwidge is oh yeah, she's such a brilliant young woman. And The Dew Breaker, if you only had one book to buy or steal or whatever one does to get books, The Dew Breaker is an incredible, incredible book. And I'm very pleased. Every writer wishes to teach a writer. That's just one of the things we wish we could do. And I've been very fortunate because I taught Kwame Alexander, who I consider actually my literary son. And Kwame won the Newbery this year for The Crossover. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful book. And I saw that Jacqueline Woodson, who was a Seventh-day Adventist, and the only reason I mentioned that is that is a theme through the book, Brown Girl Dreaming. But I saw that Jacqueline is coming, I think, in April here to Indianapolis. And I think I hope that you all get a chance to hear her, because that's a really good book, too. But Edwidge is just outstanding. There's Edwidge and there's the rest of them.
And last question, what inspires you the most, past and present, before you create?
I'm always interested in the history of it, so I'm always trying to figure out where did it come from? Because I know that whatever it is that we're doing today did not start today. It's someplace back. And I really do have an incredible affection for little old black ladies. And so most of my friends, now I'm getting to the point, I don't care what you know what? I didn't realize, something else came up recently, and I realized how many people I know who are now on stamps. It's an amazing, I mentioned Mr. Lewis, but Robert Hayden, who taught me English at Fisk, for those of us who are Fisk, Bob is on a stamp. You start to look, of course, Maya's on a stamp. You start to look at Althea Gibson, who my mother knew was on a stamp, and you start to look at all of the people you knew. And many of them are gone now, and so I'm very fortunate. I have some stories to tell. I was sharing, what little bit I could share about Ms. Parks. But there are other things that they've said to you that you heard them say to, because you're sitting there, if you have any good sense at all, when the old ladies are talking, you sit there and you be quiet and hear what it is they're saying to each other. And all of that is going to be a part of what's going to inform your writing. But again, I think that what most I learned from them was the love they had for each other, the way that they cared about each other. And when my father died, my mother had two friends, Flora and Teresa. And I moved back home because Gus had a stroke, and it was obvious that he was going to die. I mean, that was just one of those things. And so there's no point in asking Mommy, did she need help? Don't you hate people that ask you if you need help when you know damn well they do? And so Thomas and I, I had a dog, Wendy. So Thomas and Wendy and I moved back to Mommy. And I never set a table without setting an extra plate because I knew either Flora or Teresa would have dinner. One of them would come to be with my mother. I mean, I'm with my mother, but I'm her daughter. And so I'm not I don't mean it like that, but I'm not the same kind of comfort as Flora and Teresa, who have known her for, 50 years. And I never set the table without setting a plate because I knew one of them would show up. And I haven't found a way yet, and maybe I never will, I don't know. Flora and Teresa and Mommy are gone now. But to find a way to say what that meant, because it meant a lot to me. And anything I was doing, if I was cooking, if I was frying fish, I always had an extra, whatever I did, I knew one of them would show up. And that's, I don't have friends like that, unfortunately. And just because I spent my life on the road. I spent most of my life in the airport going back and forth. I spent most of my life here, essentially with strangers. And so there's another thing that I know about my life that they didn't. But there's something that they knew about their life that I, in many respects, envy. I don't know how to say that. And some of you have friends like that. And if you write, it'd be lovely just to jot it down, just to remember Anne Frank. Because Anne Frank wrote a diary that the world reads. And when she was writing it, she had no idea that the world would read it. And somebody in this room is having a life that the world will appreciate. And what you have to do is just share it. It's not a question of I'm writing a bestseller. It's not a question of, it's going to get published. Anne didn't know what happened, unfortunately, with her diary. But what she gave us was this is where we were and this is what it is. And somebody here has the same possibility of sharing their life. And I think that we should have that strength to share it, just to try.
Thank you.
Thank you.